Hi there guys, this is Farmer Bob. Welcome to my channel. Great to be back guys, and also with another map making video. Today we're going to tackle something totally different. We're going to look at a mod, or not really a mod, I won't say a mod, but a palette. We're going to look at a palette and how to customize a palette in the editor and then also make it usable for in the game, you know. So before we go on with that, a warm welcome to you. If this is your first time around, hit the subscribe and the like. I do appreciate that very much. And yeah, just stick around, man. We do some amazing stuff, some crazy stuff, and yeah, we try our best to make some informational videos, and yeah, also sometimes look at strange things. And I normally have some easy ways of doing things, you know, which I love to share with you guys. Great, man. Right, so let's talk about pallets, guys. What is a pallet? Obviously, a pallet is a piece of structure that you put something on top of. Now, to understand how the game works, anything that you see isn't really a structure. It is it's normally a layer of some sort with some paint or cover that reflects on the layer. That's basically it. Now, to think of a wooden pallet, it needs to be a structure that has got substance to it, so that stuff don't fall through it. So there is some collision. Now, collision, obviously, as we talked in the previous video, is that makes stuff. One of the collision types in the game is a layer or a how can I say, a dimension in space that stuff can't penetrate, that can't go through it, if that makes sense. So that's the type of thing that you would like on the pallet. Now, in FS19 there was no pallets in the game, and yeah, don't worry, we are on my test map, the Alpine map. It's just a map I'm using for testing, and I'm standing in front of my invisible garage. It's there, guys, I promise you. If you load this map in the game, my garage is here. So welcome to Farmer Bob's garage. I've got a magical garage. It's there, but it's not there. Anyway, so I digress. So let us talk now. FS19 didn't have pallets. So now in FS19 you needed to script pallets and have mods with pallets and have scripts running to tell the game what a pallet is and what size it is and all that kind of nonsense. Now in FS22 they've made it much easier, and they've put a whole host of pallets for you to choose from, and whatever reason you need a pallet in the game, you can pick one of those, select it, and that's that. Or you can make a modification to one of the in-game pallets, and that is the way I'm going to show you. If you need a custom pallet, because one of the subscribers asked me how to make a custom pallet and how to get it to work in the game. So this video is totally informational and just in general touching on how you would go about doing that. Now, this process not only works for pallets, it works for anything in-game, guys. If you want to make anything, a mod from anything in the physical game here, you can do it. You can just say new mod from game, and then whatever you want, you can choose from that list in there. That's tractors, that's basically your maps, whatever available things is in-game to make mods from, you can find there under the new mod from game menu. Mind you, I could have map I3D save changes. Oh yeah, it's gonna want to go into a new blank editor page, so let's rather not do that. Now you can play around with that on your own. It's very interesting. Good stuff, man. Right, let's get into the pallet things. So what you will do is go to the Farming Simulator 22 directory. That's your install directory for the game. Go into data, and you'll find a folder called objects. If you open objects, if I can just only double click it, it will help. You'll find the pallets are in there, and there's a lot of other stuff in here that you can play around with and fool around with, but just don't make any changes to these. Export them out into your own map and then fiddle with them, you know, and that's basically what we're going to do. Now, I said there's a lot of pallets. Look at them. There is tons of different pallets, and the one I'm specifically want to show you is the Euro pallet. Now the Euro palette, everyone that has ever worked with palettes in FS19 knows what a Euro palette is. So there it is, guys. So all we want to do is grab this i3D, okay, and then open it up. We're not working in our map at the moment. We're now working outside the map. I've just opened the file from our Windows Explorer. So we're opening a new editor with the palette in it. And there it is. Press F to come close, and there you are. This is what the Euro palette looks like. Now, what we want to do is, don't do any changes here yet. You grab the main transform, go File, Export Selection with Files. And then we're going to our test map. Or your map directory, or you can choose any directory, create a new directory on your desktop, for instance, export it in there. What I'm going to do is, I've already got a directory here for palette, and I've just called it palette wood. So name the i3D. Don't worry about this one, because it's just, I've been playing around obviously before making the video, so I don't sit and and ah here, you know. so yeah, I like to have some idea what I'm talking about, you know. So I've done some testing and whatever, just playing around with the things. But anyway, here we go. Palette wood, just call it whatever you want, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Euro palette, but you can call it Euro palette if you want. But you can customize it, like I say, make your own palette of it. Alright, save. And then when it asks you confirm, you say yes, you want to use those confirm statement, replace. Sorry, that's not the ones I'm talking about. But these two export files, do you want the parent directory? Yes, you want, because you want to keep everything in the main game. You don't want it in your map, or if you want to make a custom mod that you want to give to someone else, and you want to have it as a mod on its own, or a placeable rather, not a mod. A mod is going to cause you to have some major modifications to the file structure, or you have to add the mod desk file, all that kind of stuff. You can do that obviously, but the easiest way is just to say yes, you want to keep it in the main game, both of them, and there you go. Now we can close this. And we're not going to save any changes, because remember I said don't save changes there, because it's your main game, your actual game. And now we're going into our mods folder, into our test map, there, Alpine, and then I've got here placeables, and there you'll find it, the Euro palette. Now in the directory of this one here of Farming Simulator 22, I forgot to show you, there's data, objects, palettes. If you open Euro palette, you'll see there is the XML for it as well. You're going to need that, so you copy that over into your directory as well, because you would likely want to make changes to that. So just drop that into your mod folder, not move it, but just copy it, and there you go. And now you're done with the main game stuff. All right, so here we are. So now you can open your palette. Wait for it to open. It's taking long. Good stuff. Alright, and there it is. This is now your own palette. Here you can play around with it and fool about and change the color, make the size bigger, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. Alright, so the palette consists of two things. It's the main transform, obviously, and I think I just want to open my attributes window on the side. This is your main transform, and then you've got the palette visuals. Now if you do any changes, do it onto this transform. Don't do it onto the main transform, but do it on the visuals transform. So what you're going to do is go into Window, User Attributes this time. No, not User Attributes. It's Material Editing. Alright, so we can close the User Attributes, because there's no user attributes on a palette that I know of. Right, so now obviously we can make this window that's tiny a little bit bigger, so you can see the rest of your options. Right, so on this visuals transform, you have your Aldibo map, which is your colors. Now if you click on this, it will take you to that option where you can select a new diffuse for it, and in here you can obviously go and choose a material for it to your heart's content. If you've got different diffuse colors and whatever sorted, or you can simply I'm just going to, if you don't like the wood for instance, you can make it steel or whatever. That's what you do here by the Aldibo map. Alright, so play around with that, get a steel diffuse from a building or whatever, put it in here, and then you A4 away, then you've got a steel palette. Or you know, if you don't like this type of pine wood, you can get a darker colored wood, or you can change it darker in the following way. For instance, if you delete that Aldibo map, then it will give you the color option here, where you can just go in here and pick a color of your heart's content. I'm just gonna make it, let's make it blue. I'm a blue fan. Blue is nice. Play around with the colors here, or if you want a RGB color that you have already stored with the three colors for, or the three numbers for RGB colors, is red, green and blue. And obviously everyone knows that with colors, if you mix those three colors, you can make any color, you know, that type of stuff. Click on whatever color you want, set it up and click OK, and there you are. Now you have got a blue palette. It's, and I must say, it looks quite shocking. It's like one of those funky blue stuff. Anyways, that's good. Alright, so now what you want to do, if you want to make this palette bigger, you can customize the size of the palette as well here by the scale. So all you need to do is just type in 0.2 here, for instance, at the X and Z, 0.2, and then obviously the thickness, if you want to go for the thickness as well, you can make that thicker as well. Alright, so now there you got a nice blue palette that is a tiny bit bigger than the average Euro palette. And you can save this, bloop, like that. Just make sure that your main transform is zeroed. Always have your main transform zeroed, so that when you place it in game, it appears at the 0 mark. and you don't have any issues from there. Okay, so now you can close this palette. Now the palette is done, or the modification to your palette is done. And if you want to now place this palette in your game, obviously it's as simple as importing it and placing it down, because it's going to be a thing that's got structure to it, and you can throw it around in the game, and it will also have weight to it and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to use this palette now in a mod or something custom, then that's where this XML is going to come in. And here in the XML you can set it up, everything that you want to set up for it. Here's your store data, very important. It's going to ask you for store data, so obviously you'll set the store data to this europalette.xml. You'll set the store data in your mod desk of your mod. So in other words, if you open any mod, for instance, FS22, this one here, go into mods, you'll see, let me just go to, this is a workshop. Just open the workshop. You'll see any mod needs a mod disk file. If you open the mod disk like so, there will be store items. So that store items points to the XML. So you'll have store items in your mod disk. So you point that store items obviously to the Bureau Palette XML for the in the mod that you're busy using the palettes for. And in this XML, where that store data now points to, it points to this section here. That's the store data, obviously. And this image you need to change now, obviously. Well, mind you, because we've used the in-game one, you can leave the image there. But if you want to make that blue one your image, you're going to have to save an image for it and rewrite it and put it in your folder here at let me just go back. Sorry, there. You put it in here, and then you repoint this directory to your map directory to that PNG image that you've made, and then that will be your store data. It's the image for the palette in the store. And then obviously the other thing is the base. This is important. You need to change this directory here to your new R3D now, which is now in this directory here. So that's my map, test map. And then so we're going to copy the rest of it from test map onwards. So after test map, the next directory or folder is maps, then map alpine, and then placeables. Alright, so I've just called it that for now. You can call it, you have your own directory, but what you're going to do then is just overwrite this whole bit here up to where the palette is called, Control V. and then change your slashes. Remember, your slashes must always lean forward. And then the very end here, the R3D, we've renamed it now to Pallet Wood. You just copy the name of your R3D, Control C, overwrite this name here, so it's the same name as the new palette that you've made. Good. And then that's it, guys. And here you can see the base here has got size set up. Here you can set your size. You can show in vehicle menu if you want the palette to appear in your cars. There's a lot of stuff you can do. And then here by full units, obviously you can see Giants has edited or left these options open for you to use. Now here is where you can choose what this palette can handle. So you can enable any one of these full volumes. This one does, let me have a quick, this one does fluids and this one does solids. So if you want a fluid palette, you enable this green stuff from full unit to full unit, and all you do is just take out these little thingamajobbies, what you call whatever like that. Just delete all of them on each line, and that way you will enable the whole function of that full unit. All right, and then downstairs, discharge, you can fiddle around with that. If the discharge is if you hold say you've got a pallet and you want to store some dry goods on it, like fertilizer. Now this discharge needs to be enabled for fertilizer, for instance, because when you have the pallet and the bag of fertilizer on top of it, and you go over the trigger point to unload it, or over the vehicle to unload it, it needs to discharge into the vehicle, and that's what discharge does. So so you can enable this script or this line if you want, and then the dynamic mount, trigger note, yeah, it's enabled. What else is there? Design configurations, that's 2 110s that is running there automatically, set up by Giants for you already. Pallet vis, and that is your mesh nodes. So Pallet vis is the one that we've done all the changes on. In the editor, if you look at, do I still have it open in the editor? No, I've closed it, but we can quickly import it. File, import map Alpine palette width. I'm pulling that palette into my map and I'm placing it, Control B, there it is, all nice and blue. And you'll see if you open it, pallet vis is the actual visual component of the palette, and it's scripted here in the XML file. Great. So, and then R3D mappings, that's all need to be there. It's just mappings for your R3D file, and that's it, guys. Yeah, you can install data. You can call your palette what you want it. You can call it your own name. Change the name up there. The category stays palette, and then brand lizard. That's always the best, because that's where your palettes will be found in the store data. Show in store, you want to make true. Can be sold, you want to make true, because when you're in game, you want to see it in the store window, store menu. Let's make it true as well. Mind you, I haven't even called this XML now, so it doesn't matter. No, I'm not going to bother with that. Can be sold, obviously, it just does what it says it does. Alright, anyways, guys, that is now how you modify your palette in the editor. And then, like I say, if you just want to place the palette in the game and have it usable for the game, you will now have to load this palette, obviously, via that XML to make it workable in the game. Now, to do that, you'll have to, obviously, the Euro palette is already part of the game, but your mod that you want to use this palette in now need to pull that palette or have that palette as part of its workable thing. So in the mods XML of the mod, you will add your store data in there, and also the XML will be called from the mods XML, if it makes sense. The particular mod that you want to use, like a factory or whatever that uses palettes, for instance. Yeah, so you'll use your own palette for that. Right, guys, another thing also that you would like to take note of or notice is if you open the visuals, you'll immediately see the material is unselected or is hidden. I can just quickly show you my material editing. There it is. But remember what I said, don't change the material here. Go to the visuals and do it there. It's the best to do it. Then obviously collision is already set up. If you open the collision, there will be two sides to a pallet because of that fork thing that goes in here, whatever. So you'll see there's the one box, collision box, and another one. So those two boxes is directly connected to your visuals. So if you make your visuals bigger, like so, the boxes will grow with it. You see, so you don't have to fiddle with any of those to make changes to your palette. Just leave them as is and do all your changes on the visual one, on that transform. And if you stick to that, everything should be honky-dory and working great. And remember to save. That's a good idea. If you want your palette to look like that, obviously. Good stuff. Right, guys. Another thought is if you want to make changes to your palette's characteristics of the whole palette as in general, you go to your main transform this time, and then you'll see if you open the rigid body selection, it's got the rigid body already by default. You will see it's a dynamic palette, and then in here you can, and it needs to be compound as well. So in here you can play around with densities and all kinds of things. Just have a look at that. Another thing, guys, never make any changes to your visuals regarding the body of the thing. Always do those in your main transform where you can set up the rigid body and friction and that kind of things, you know. Don't do any changes. What's interesting to me is that you can't change the mass of an object. I don't know why that is not usable or how can I say, editable. It would have been nice if we could have been given I suppose people will go crazy if they allow that. You know, but I'm sure you can, if you edit it in, if you maybe export your palette into Blender, for instance, you can maybe fiddle around with mass and that type of stuff. And then center of mass obviously will be in the center. That's why it's almost zero on that. But I don't understand why the mass is zero. But anyways, the main thing, guys, to take away from this video basically is most of these things are already set up for you in game. Personally, I won't fiddle around with any of that. Do change the color here, the size at the visuals, change the color and the size and all that kind of stuff. But there shouldn't be any need to change anything else, you know, on the palette, because it's all already set up in game for you. Right, guys, then lastly I'll quickly want to have a look at the mods XML. If you working with the a mod, it should have an XML configuring the whole mod, what it does and where it gets set up and everything. So let's have a quick look at that. The base, all this stuff is just setting up the mod, where it goes and where it is set up, and then the hotspot for it obviously is just the point on the map where it's going to load and unload or be set up. Trigger markers, that's a given. Production points, right? So at production points, you want to obviously just specify what type of stuff you want to have on your pallets, and there you can add all the different types of fruits and wool and honey and whatever. At production points, you specify this obviously in this XML of yours of the mod. Pallet storage is the one I'm just looking at as an example. Good. And then the selling station, obviously also you want to set up your unload triggers and whatever goes into that trigger. So add your goods in there. Obviously this is a pallet storage, so it's got bulk stuff in here. You probably, if you design a pallet for a specific thing, you'll only have the one in there, like lettuce for instance. And then Pallet Spawner, this is where your pallet is going to be placed next to the factory, so you can specify the start and end in the actual R3D. If you, I haven't opened the R3D now, but in the R3D you can move these two points around, and that is called spawn place 1 and spawn place 2. If you open the R3D, you will find them there, and you can specify the end and the start and the end place where the pallets will appear or spawn. Okay, great. And then storage, obviously the same thing. Make sure your stuff is in here, whatever you work on the pallet with, and then the fill type obviously needs to be specified and how much goes on the pallet. This is a factory, obviously, so you'll never get 375,000 letters on one pallet, obviously. But I suppose this is a storage facility, and maybe, yeah, if you're working with a factory, for instance, yeah, you'll obviously have more like this one. It's almost 400,000 liters of letters. Yeah, good stuff. Animate objects, mappings. If you've made changes to your structure here, you're going to have to add to the R3D mappings as well. Now guys, I promise this is the last one. I know I said it's the last one just now. But anyways, once you've done all your productions in your mods XML, there's one last thing that you need to also think of, is how to get this palette now to work in your map. Now the trick on that is you have to modify your fill type. You have to add a fill type for that palette to be able to be worked in the map. So yes, what you need to do then now is obviously there's two things you need to do. First of all, check if your map has got fill types in your map. If you don't have fill types in your map, you have to add it from the in-game. So what you do is you go to FS22, go into data, and then maps, I think, and in here, yes, you should have the fill types XML. You copy that file, drop it in your map folder, and normally where your R3D is the right spot for it. So mine is my map is test map, maps, map Alpine, and there's my map R3D. So normally just drop it in here. That's the place for it. And then you need to now notify the game that you have a new fill type file, and that you will be pulling from the map XML file. So you open your map XML and find the one that says fill types. There it is. Now you need to modify this name or this directory to point to the new place where you've just put your XML. So we're going to just grab this directory here. So it's test map, everything after test map, copy that, Control C, and we just drop it in here. It's actually, because my map is the same as this, I can actually just delete the $data. But if yours obviously not the same, then Control V, like so, and then just make all the forward slashes and verify the directory. It's maps, map Alpine, and then that's your fill types. Alright, so that's in your map XML, so you save that. Now the next thing to do is open that fill types. So we're gonna go there. I think I've got it open already. So you just double click. Let me rather double click the one in my folder, test map, because otherwise now, where is it now? There it is. Right, so let's close. I don't have another one open. Excellent. Alright, now in here, guys, you will see that every fill type has got a section for palette. So you're gonna go and copy this fillable palette.xml. Obviously you will see most of them goes to fillable palette.xml. Yes, and then obviously all you need to do is route your palette, this directory, to each of the fill types you want to be able to put on your palette. Obviously route that to your palettes.xml, if that makes sense. If it was the modified Euro palette, you will obviously have that whole directory. For instance, let me just have a look here. If you in palette, say for instance you use the Euro palette to make a palette, that will be the one. Then you'll have this Euro palette directory in your map, and you will route this to every fill type you want on that palette. Obviously route that to the Euro palette. Great, guys. Oh, thank you for watching, and a big thank you to my supporters always. You guys are awesome, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Cheers.